So here's what I want to do today. I just want to share a little bit because I am convinced we are entering a season where God's going to give us creativity and ideas in ministry that we've never had before. And that the things that we've said, oh, I wish this would happen, or I wish somebody would fix this, that type of thing. I think he's going to, well, I know this, I know it. If we're paying attention, he's going to give us new ideas, new creativity for our situation. And so that's really, and even today, I think we'll take some time, of course, and get before God. And a lot of times in worship, one of the things that I'm oftentimes doing is, because I'm an idea guy. If you hang around me, I'm an idea guy. Well, you got to get these someplace. And usually they come when I'm not talking to somebody. And so I have to be away. And so a lot of times worship for me is, Lord, download something. Give me something. And so even the little bit of time we have left today, I think God's going to download some ideas to you because he's going to, it's not too hard to recognize problems. And then, as you were saying last night, Woody, some of those problems really touch your heart. I'm not called to fix every problem, and neither are you, so don't. That will get you depressed. But every once in a while, a problem just, it grips you. Okay, that's the one where God's going to download an idea. And so I think we need to get more expectant to, I see a problem, it touched my heart, I know I'm involved somehow. Now, God, you got to show me how. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you a little bit today. So, Father, show us that thing. Grab our heart.
Yes.
Lord, we see with our eyes things, and there's no shortage of things that need fixed. And so, Father, and you've got a lot of people, so you've got to call on everybody to do whatever they're supposed to do. But for those of us here in this room, for those of us in our fellowship, in our region, Lord, I pray that you tug our heart at something. And Father, show us what it is and how to do it. So thank you, Jesus. Even today, even in a little bit, we'll just take some time and get before you. Use that time to show us things, God. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. And we pray. Amen. Amen. Creativity is something that surprisingly, at least in my opinion, I think as a society, we're losing creativity. And one of the reasons I think we're losing creativity is because we're all connected. And so we all know everything else everybody else is doing. And so we just copy. Learning is awesome. Copying is bad. And I see it in a lot of areas. For instance, if you pay much attention to, let's take high school or college sports, like every coach is the same anymore. They're all running the same systems. They're all running the same plays. I was watching a game last night, and I have coached for a lot of years at Eisenhower, and I'm involved with the team now. And I absolutely know, no matter who I coached, I could beat Eisenhower's varsity team. I know it. Because I would creatively shut down their team. And you know what? Not a single team we played has done that. Isn't that weird? We're dominated by one guy, and everybody plays a standard defense against us. I'm like, what the heck? Where is the creativity in coaching? And I think what has happened is every coach is wanting to be like everybody else. And this is the system that, Coach K is using, or so-and-so. And so we're just copying other people's systems. And, the great coaches, their system works for them. It ain't necessarily going to work for you. And so even in a simple realm as high school coaching, I'm thinking, wow, 15 years ago, there was a lot more creativity. I can remember coaching, and literally 1 year, woke up in the middle of the night, had a dream of how to beat a team. And I implemented it the next day in practice, and it worked. I'm like, where's that creativity in coaching? Where are the coaches waking up with a dream on how to win a game? And that sounds really like, well, you're way over spiritualizing a playoff game of a number 8 seed playing a number 1 team. Of course I am. But the principle here is, individuals have callings. And individuals are called to be individuals. We are called to learn huge amounts. So I want to learn from everybody who's doing it well. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying don't learn from somebody doing well. I want to learn everything from somebody doing well.
Yeah.
But there is no way God is calling me or you to copy anybody else's call. No other call. I can't do it. And so I was actually yesterday at the airport. You were a little bit late, so I'm sitting there. And see, these are times when God can download things. So Lord, He forced me to sit in an airport for an hour. And I was thinking about leading, and I know I share this a little bit. I grow weary of the church today. Everything is about leadership seminars. You know that. I've shared that. It's a catchphrase. It's a fad, whatever you want to say. You know, we all have to be leaders. Well, news flash. If we're all leaders in the sense that people think of leaders, who's going to follow us, right? And I mean, it has gone crazy in this notion of leaders. And as you know, and I kind of get a little bit on a soapbox about this, Jesus never calls anybody to be leaders in the sense of the world's leaders. He calls us to be sheep, which don't have leaders. He calls us to be followers. He calls us to be children. He calls us to be, pick any name you want Jesus used. He doesn't call us to be leaders. But He does call us to lead. And I want to redefine what leading in the kingdom is, because I want each of us to know we are called to be leaders, but not in the sense of the world. And so when we think of leadership, if somebody were to say, well, what's the requirement of leaders? The obvious answer would be, what does a leader need to be a leader? Well, he needs followers, right? I mean, that's the obvious answer. Well, that is, of course, true, but I want to redefine it, because I don't believe that's what makes a leader a leader.
No.
So what I want, because anybody can get followers, obviously they're a leader, but that doesn't mean you're doing anything good. It just means you have people following you into whatever you're going into. That can be over a cliff. It can be to the pearly gates of heaven. It doesn't, but we're all over in that. And so I want to say what makes a leader in the kingdom of God is going the way you should go. So I want to redefine it. You see, it's not my responsibility for them to follow me. It's my responsibility for me to follow Him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty quotable right there. So
Amen.
Julie, write that down.
I'm trying.
You got it down?
I'm serious. Can you repeat that? Yeah.
It's not my responsibility for them to follow me. And I want to free you up from that, because I think there's too much pressure in the church today that we have to all have followers. It's not if anybody follows me, that's not my responsibility.
Right.
Just isn't. Because sometimes, just in my life, I've had times where I've had lots of people follow me, and other times where nobody followed me. Well, does that mean at one point I was amazing? The other point, no. It just means that there's timing of following. There's seasons where you put something out there and you're running around on your own feeling naked.
Yeah.
And it's a test, are you going to follow the Lord? And then eventually, as God sees fit, He'll bring people in. And so if every time we said something went somewhere, 1,000 strong followed us, well, guess what? We'd just have big, huge honking heads, and we'd be, ridiculous. You wouldn't want to be around us. So there's seasons where people follow, where they don't follow. That's not the issue of leading. So the first part was, it's not my responsibility for them to follow me. It is my responsibility for me to follow Him. That's what I want us to be called by as leaders. Following His lead. God will send people with you when He needs them to. He just will. We keep following Him. And so leading is very personal. And so I want to up your faith level that God's going to give you creativity to lead. It's just going to give it to you. It's going to give you new ideas. It's going to give you fresh ideas. It's going to give you, I'm thinking, Dean, just talking a little bit about there, Puerto Rico. It's just wild to think that I don't know what you are, an engineer technician? What is your title? What are you at SKF?
Bearing solution engineer.
Bearing solution engineer. There you go. I like that title, huh? So Dean is a guy who works for a company, and he's just making a quick run down to Puerto Rico on his own to figure out how we can go down and help people and take a whole team from here. That doesn't make any sense, except for see a need, God touches a heart. Now we got to say, okay, God, how does this work? You got to give me ideas. You got to give me solutions. You got to give me, how does this work? We can't just jump on a plane, land in Puerto Rico, and here we are, everybody, to save the world. How is this all going to fit together? And so this whole thing, even as he's going down there, is I've got to see, God, how you want us to work. Yeah. Not how you want somebody else to work, how you want us to work. And so I just want to up that ante. What's God's call on you? What's God's call on us? It's not going to be the same as other people. We're unique. We're distinct. The classic, everybody's created an original and they all die as a copy. That's what our world does. Our world tries to make everybody like everybody else. And more so now than ever, we're trying to make every church like every other church. Why do we do that? No church is called to be like any other church. I love the odd churches. I love the fact that we're really different, and we need to embrace that. We shouldn't say, here's a seminar on how to do your stage presentation, and everybody should do it exactly like this. Well, why would we think that? It doesn't even make any sense. So I want us to see that we are an original, and let's stay that way. Let's stay original. Let's stay unique. There's things that God has given each one of you that He's done for a reason. And we all have little quirks. We all have little things that, like, that's really strange. Well, that's okay. That's who you are. You're strange. I think the Bible says that, doesn't it? It's peculiar, baby. You're a peculiar people. Some of you excel at that. I'll just keep going. I'm going to encourage you today. So here's what I want you to do, even as I'm talking here. Think of things that you would like to see changed. Think of things that you would like to see fixed. And then here's the other thing. Expect God to give you creativity in it. And also expect Him, you're not alone in this. The creativity may come within a group of 50. The creativity may come with a friend. It's going to come in the context of something. You're part of, we're all together part of Praise Fellowship. So it's all going to somehow come under our larger vision. I mean, if you've got some just whacked out screwball, way out in left field idea, well, that might be, but maybe it's not going to fit in the whole, I don't even know what that would be, because almost every idea, as screwy as it seemed to us fit in our vision. So I can't even think of an idea that would not fit in our vision. Well, I'll give you an example. Basically a visitor came one time, and they were energetic and fired up and all that stuff, and they wanted us to start a preschool. So they started giving me all this stuff on, here's how you need to start a preschool, and here's pamphlets. I'm like, what the heck? I had no interest in starting a preschool. It wasn't part of our, and then within like 2 months they just left. So that would be an example that it's just that's just an outside the box. It just wasn't going to work. It wasn't part of it. So that's what I mean by that. But pretty much anything God's put on your heart is going to fit in the context of the larger body. It just is, because I know you people. We're not in rebellion here. It's going to fit in this larger thing, and He's going to give us ideas. But it's going to be unique to you and unique to us. Yeah. It just is. And so this is last night I came in here, and I sat over there, and man, it's just such good worship. I like worshiping in this little room. And for whatever reason, Dave, I don't know what you did to the sound system. You sound pretty doggone good last night. For this little portable sound system that can fit in the trunk of a car, it's pretty good. And so I'm over there, and I just really felt that God said this, and I was pretty excited about it. And then you spoke, which was really cool, Woody, because this is similar to what you said. I just really felt God say this, and He said this similarly to me before over the years. And I felt He said, it's there if you want it. Take it. Take the step. Take the step of faith. And listen to this. They are waiting. They have been waiting. Yeah, come on. They are not going to do it, but they are waiting. They will help. They will join the army, but they will not take the first step. It's there if you want it. Take it. And I felt that was general to us. But I want that to be specific to you. They're not going to do it. They're not. Now, here's the thing. They're going to help you. Now, again, who are they? They don't exist. You know how I say this a lot. But they're going to help you. They're not going to take the first step. If you wanted to say, well, Rick, what do you think a leader is? A leader is one who takes the first step. That's what a leader is. And that's faith. Take the first step. You go out on a limb and you say, oh my gosh, this might be really bad. I'm going for it. And you do it. And then everybody else says, oh, that's awesome. I had that idea. This is a great idea. Well, why? And then you're like, doggone it, none of you, then you start to go through this bitterness in your head and stuff like that. What do you mean it was your idea? I've been doing... But that whole thing of taking the first step, and so I want to encourage you in the things that you've been thinking about. Some of these things have been on your heart for a decade, 2 decades, I don't know, a long time. Yeah. And I'm telling you, and I hope you really got charged up by last night. This is the time. This is the time to take that step. Just this. Why? Because, well, I don't know. We have no guarantee of tomorrow. Just don't. We could all be gone. Who knows what's going on tomorrow? But I do know that we have today, and I do know that it's time to take a step, and it's time to. And you said it well. You said, well, what about my age? Well, it's the age you are, so just deal with it. Right? You're not getting any older, younger. You're just today. Just think, this is what I am. Perfect age. The Bible says He's determined the time set for you in the exact places where you should live, and that means He said the time set for you. That means. In whatever year you were born, that's the year He wanted you. And so take that step. It's there for the taking. And so as we come together, let's take it. Let's figure out what it is. Let's hear from God. Let's get creativity. Let's get ideas. Then when ideas come, I'll just share with you kind of how they, in my case, I'll get ideas. I mull them over a lot because anytime you share your ideas, you're really vulnerable at that point. That's the scary thing. The scary thing is to go from, sitting over here and laying on your face in worship, God downloads something. Oh, you're so charged up. You stand up and you see somebody, you sit down, you have coffee, and you start to speak what God showed you. It doesn't make any sense when you're saying it. You're like, oh my gosh. What is going on here? I'm trying to say something that feels funny when it sounded great when I was in the presence of God, right? And now there's this vulnerable thing of, so what the natural thing to do is to pull back and to not share it. So let me just give you some practical things. Find some people that are safe to flesh it out with first. And get with whatever your group would be. I don't know what it is. It could be your spouse. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's 2 or 3 other people. And just flesh it out and talk about it and formulate it, because it's a good chance that these people have some things God's been showing them that will help you put some parameters on it. And then you can kind of come out with you don't have to have a lot of people with you. I mean, sometimes you just go on your own. But it sure helps when at least 2 or 3 people walked with you for a little bit through this vision. Yeah. Then when you come and you say, okay, we're going to do, whatever, a marriage thing. It's crazy what you're doing. I listened to you in Africa, just so you know. So, how wild is that? I'm sitting there listening to you. And so it's very good, by the way. So, but, even that, he had an idea. How can we fix marriages? Well, gosh, I don't know. The problem's a little bit too big. Well, here's a little idea God gives you. You start to pursue it, you start to do it, and you watch it go, and there's seasons of it and things like that. And then once you get a small little team, so to say, then you can share it with a lot more confidence, with some boldness, more boldness. And I'm not saying it can't be just you and Jesus. Go for it. But I can tell you, it's going to be easier when it's you, Jesus, and 2 or 3 other people. It just is. That's how it should be, because we're designed to be in a body, and we're designed to be where we are weak, and God makes us intentionally weak. Yeah. Very important that we're weak, because then He can be strong, and so we have to be able to lean against somebody, because they're just going to be times. So let's take the thing, and I'll just share. Let's go to 1 Samuel 17.
sheep or weak people.
They are. 17, I don't want to go yet. First Samuel 17. All right, let's just look at David and Saul's armor. You know this story well, so I don't need to go into it a whole lot. You know the story. David brings the lunch out to the front lines. Goliath is taunting the Israelites. He did this for 40 days. Imagine this. The whole Israel army, every day, all comes to the battlefront. The entire Philistine army comes to the battlefront. And they're all there. They got their weapons. They got all dressed up for battle. Here we go. And they come out there. Goliath comes out and says, "Hey, you bunch of dogs. Anybody going to fight me today?" And Israel goes, "Chirp, chirp, 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 chirp." Yeah, chirp, chirp verse. That's verse 125. But they do nothing, and so then they all go back home. Wake up the next day, let's get all dressed up for battle, and and they come out. So it's really we just hear the David and Goliath and think it's whatever, this Veggie Tales thing or flannel craft, depending on which generation you are. They all were. Come on, who grew up with flannel crafts? Yeah, they were awesome. I'm telling you. God, you never had a flannel craft? It must be a northeastern.
Larry doesn't know what it is either.
Hey, some of you don't know what a flannel craft is?
I don't know what it is.
Oh, we're going to start teaching what flannel crafts, I'm telling you.
Come on now.
These were boards that had little flannel things, and they stuck to the board, and you could make them do anything. Yeah, flannel boards. Yeah, they were cool.
So they call them flannel grabs.
I don't know what they were called. Flannel board. They probably weren't called flannel wrap. Flannel shirts. I have no idea.
You know, when I went to Bible school, they had one of those.
There you go. So you had to be in a church basement. It had to be concrete for flannel wrap. If you had carpet on the floor, no, can't do it. Gotta be a concrete floor, metal chairs. Anyways, so I don't even know where. Oh, so those were the days, I'm telling you. Ironically, the lady who runs the release time at the schools, the kids in our schools get out of school for a half hour, 45 minutes a week, and they go and have Bible school lessons. She still uses flannel. Isn't that awesome? I love Ruthie Gray, who's like 120 years old, is still doing it. So these kids are like, "Whoa, that's so cool! It sticks to the wall." She's like the hippest thing there is. But David and Goliath, the thing I want you to see here, for 40 days this went on. For 40 days, Goliath taunted the Israel army. So I want you to get that, because that's a long time to be mocked. And you're being mocked. The Israelite, it used to be called Israelites, now it's Israeli. Israelite army were fighting, they were trained, they had all their weapons on. And all their weapons on, and for 40 days, they just put their weapons on and did nothing. I want you to see this. This is a little bit like the church has been. And I think you could make a case, you've been doing it for about 40 years. About 40 years of getting all dressed up and not doing the battle. Nowhere to go. I mean, and really, and you spoke so well about it last night, society is mocking us. It's mocking us with whatever it's throwing out. Pick the thing that's happening that's bad. They're mocking us. And you don't have any influence. You got no answer for this. You think you can fix the drug problem? Ha! You think you can help these young people? Forget it. You think you can fix families? You serve a God who's, can't do anything. It's a continual, it's a mocking. It's a mocking of the church. It's a mocking of God's people. And I tell you what, my guess is the fighters, the soldiers in Saul's army just kind of got used to it after a while. The first few days they were probably really mad. You know, this isn't good. I'll take him on. And they go, oh, he's kind of big. You know, then after, I don't know, after a week or 2 or 3, it probably became your job. What do we do today? Well, let's get all dressed up. Let's go out, listen to Goliath. Let's come over and have lunch. All right, that sounds like a good day. And they did this week after week after week. And you know, this was just the life they settled in. I mean, 40 days is a long time. Yeah. So that is a part that we skip over in this account. 40 days. And I'm telling you, I guarantee it, because I know people, and I think it reads it even in the account, that this was just life. This was just life. Nobody's going to fix it. What did you think? Like day 41, somebody was going to get excited and go beat him up? There was no ending to this. In fact, when David brought the sandwiches to his brothers, they basically mocked him, right? They're the ones who every day are doing nothing. And they mock him for coming out to the battle and leaving the sheep. Why? Because they had settled, this is us, we're the Israelite army. What do? We go out and stand, get mocked, and we come home. I'm telling you, is that not a little bit of the definition of the church in the world the last many years? What's the church do? Well, we gather together, we get all excited, we get all dressed up, we talk about this, and we got this. We go out and we're here, and the world says, you guys, you're just pathetic. Well, you're right. All right, see you tomorrow. That's it. I mean, it's really it's sad. It just is really sad. And I'm telling you what the church is waiting for. And, you know, we're responsible for our region as well as we have some pockets international that we're responsible for. But a time's coming when a David's got to rise up.
Yeah.
He's got to rise up. And I'm just saying, we got to be close to the end of the 40 days. We have to.
Yes.
We've got to be close to the end of the 40 days. And now's the time. I just want you to see, though, this is what I want to encourage you on, this creative weapons that God's going to give you. I don't know, you know the story so well, but let's just go to, finally David convinces Saul that he'll do this, which is crazy, because I want you to hear this. Saul eventually said, okay, you can go do it. And so we all get excited about the story, but you know what was at stake? What if David loses?
Everybody lost.
Everybody lost. So, is this not crazy? I want you to see this because this has got to encourage you this is what a leader is. Everybody mocks David. Everybody thinks he's no good, all that stuff. Nobody said, oh, here comes the leader David. He went to 6 classes this week, and he's now the trained leader in John Maxwell leadership. He's just a worthless little boy who comes. He had to talk Saul into letting him go. Saul lets him go, knowing that when he gets beat, they all become servants to the Philistines.
Yeah.
That's what was at stake. So when David went out there, in our 3,000 years later, we yes, there goes David. Really? There goes David. When Goliath squashes him, we all become slaves to the Philistines.
Yeah.
Whoa. This is where a real did anybody follow David? No. No, nobody followed him.
They thought he was...
Yeah, why would you follow him? Nobody followed him, but deep down they were putting their hope in him. So this is what I'm saying, when we as a church, and you as whatever God's put on your heart, things you're going to run, when you step out in it, this is what a leader does. He steps out in it, and what's everybody else doing? The thing I said, they are waiting. They have been waiting. They're not going to step in, but they're going to join you when you go and do it. They're going to join the army, but they're like this now.
Yeah.
That's what they are. And so David goes out, nobody follows him, and stakes were very high. I'm just telling you, though, that all of Israel was hoping. All of Israel they had gotten to the point where somehow they got to the point where they realized this is not what they wanted to do the rest of their life. They didn't want to be mocked by Goliath forever. Because I think what they knew is eventually Goliath was just going to come and beat them. Eventually, Goliath was going to get tired of this too. And so eventually, it was all going to get bad. And so they're putting hope in this David. And I'm telling you, that's us. We're in our region, who's going to lead this? I think there's awesome people in our region. I'm telling you, nobody's stepping out.
Yeah.
They're not. And does that mean that David's greater than others? No, it might mean that David's a little bit naive and foolish to do this. But God will take that. God will take your, I don't know, utopianism. Oh, we can do this, let's go kill him. You know, a few years later, David had all this armor and big swords and stuff like that, but at this time, he was like, I can do this, dude. Well, when he went out, this is what I want us to see, and this is where God's going to speak to us. When David went out, Saul dressed him. You got to see this. He says in verse, middle of something, 17:37. And he goes on and says that he beat lions and bears and stuff like that. Saul said to David, go and the Lord be with you. Verse 38. Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him, a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around. I love that verse. Tried walking around. So he's like all faithed up, right? He's like charged up. He just come from this huge presence of God. I'm going to go tear down the giant. And then this is what ends up happening. Oh gosh. And then, you know, I don't know what kind of helmet, but I picture the old medieval helmet where the thing keeps coming down, you know, Bugs Bunny, think, oh, and he can't see. And he can't walk, he can't see, he can't run, he can hardly lift this sword and the whole thing. Watch this, because this is where we got to hear this. God's given us a heart, a call, a vision, whatever you want to say, and he wants us to do it. And sometimes we just get too busy trying to be like everybody else. And we try to copy the latest, how it happened. Well, you mentioned it last night. New York City, passing out tracts it worked. Let's do that everywhere then. It didn't work. And we could all share testimonies like this. Something works at some season, at some place, it worked. Well, that's great. Glory to God, it worked. That doesn't mean that we need to start, and this is the problem that happens. Something works for somebody someplace because God spoke to them, and then they get a national or international platform, and they teach everybody else how to do exactly what worked for them at their place at their time. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And so now we get frustrated because we're trying whatever the latest thing that worked for somebody else, and we say, oh, it must be God didn't give us the vision. Oh, that's not true. God didn't give you that armor. Use your own armor. And so we need more of these stirring of our heart, giving us a heart for what God wants to do, and then you see God on your armor, right? Learn from everybody else. Hang out with Saul. Find out the weaknesses of Goliath. I don't know. I mean, Saul knew some things. Learn some things from him. But my gosh, don't put on his armor. It says Saul was a foot taller than everybody else in Israel. We always think of Goliath as being this giant. Saul was a giant. He was a big guy. Think of him, if we say that Goliath is 9 foot tall, well, Saul was like 7 foot tall. Big dude. Right? Well, David wasn't. Especially at this time. David got, whatever, big, handsome, ruddy, awesome, whatever you want to say about him. The Bible does say he got all that. But at this time, he didn't. They just said, I don't even know what ruddy is, but he was ruddy. Is that a good thing? I don't know. He said he's handsome and ruddy.
That sounds like a ruddy.
I know. I don't even know what that is, but he was ruddy. I think it means red, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Red complexion?
Yeah, I thought dark, not dark, but not light.
So he's like a redhead.
Well, redheads are black.
All right. Got it.
It took a redneck to face a giant.
We're in good company. Chiseled and muscular? Now I'm getting embarrassed.
Now it was ready as you read.
I know, I'm chiseled and muscular. Anyways, though, he was good looking. That's what you gotta see out of that. But the point is, I just want you to see this, and he puts all that stuff down. He says, I cannot go in these because I'm not used to them. So he took them off. You just let this sink into us, because we're not used to other things. We're just not. Now hear this. There was a time when David used swords, when he wore armor. So don't think he didn't develop and grow. He didn't, he did. But at this time in his life, he wasn't used to them. He couldn't go in these. And so then he took them off. He took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in a pouch in his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. And that's what he did. That's what he used. He said, listen, I have no idea how to wear this armor. I'm a shepherd. He says, I know how to have a staff. I know how to have a sling, because I guess he used his sling to kill bears and lions, which is pretty cool in itself. And he went in those. So what I want us to hear, and I know this, I know that God's going to give us some things that you might even be surprised at, but he's going to speak to you in ways that today you can walk in it. You can walk in it today, whatever that is. Walk in it, and he'll give you ideas. He'll give you fresh ideas. He'll give you unique ideas. And take those 5 stones. I'm not going to teach it today. At some point I will, I suppose. But I felt. See, the funny thing about traveling for me, when I travel multi-time zones, 8 time zones over there, I literally will go a week without sleeping, just like a few hours here and there. So I'm up a lot at night, and so. In fact, when you went over with you, Sadiq, you were up all night. You finished a whole master's degree program because we didn't sleep. I mean, when you don't sleep, that's true, isn't it? If you quit sleeping, you can be extremely productive. So, you'll die very soon. But if you could just, so I was up one night. In fact, I woke up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, listened to the Super Bowl. I woke up at 2 in the morning, listened to the Penn State basketball game that my son was at. So, all these things are going on when I'm over there. But one night, I actually decided to seek Jesus. And
Thank you.
yeah, I know.
It wasn't a game.
There was no game that night.
Good fall, man.
Yeah. But I really felt he showed me for us, and also for it was a message I shared with all of Gospel Light Ministries leaders, and it's the same message for us, that he was calling us back to our original 5 stones, and that they had 5 stones. We have the same 5 stones. We're very similar ministries to them. I'll just give them to you now. I'm not going to teach on them now. But these are 5 stones we must always know. It's always our DNA. We will do things differently, but our stones don't change. David's stones never changed. David was going to kill giants. David was going to destroy Philistines. David was going to free people up. His stones didn't change. The 5 stones that I believe are for Gospel Light and for us. It was, just let me know, it was a very odd trip, and it was a very quick trip, and it was wild. I literally traveled 5 days to be someplace 4 days, so it's not very efficient. But this time I had with all these leaders, it literally relaunched an entire ministry. It was really something. I'd not seen it before. It was just these words I spoke completely relaunched a ministry. And it was like, wow, I'm watching it happen in front of me. And it was really something. But the 5 stones, if you write these down, take them and mull them over, and then at some point I'll teach on them. We're called to be supernatural. So just write that down. I'm not going to make much comments on that. But we're not called to be natural. What's that? Yeah. We're called to be supernatural. We just are. We're getting our ideas not from books, supernaturally. We're seeing miracles happen. It's just things that we can't do. We've got to see it. We've got to have dreams. We've got to. The prophetic is part of us. So all of these things that are not natural, we must have one of our stones be completely supernatural. It's got to be. It just has to be. And and that means I don't even want to. I got to stop this one. Supernatural. Second stone. We must be biblical. Biblical. We've got to teach the Bible. We've got to live in the Bible. It's very easy in today's church to ignore the Bible. It's very easy. It's terrible to say that that's a trend. It's a trend right now. The Bible is gone. And we'll just tell stories and illustrations and this latest thing and this prop or whatever it would be, and the Bible's gone. We've got to always, we can have all those things. We can have illustrations, props, lights, all those things are fine. But man, we got to know this. We got to love it and all that stuff. So supernatural and biblical. Unfortunately, that is not a normal, common combination. Isn't that a sad commentary on the church today? Well, you're either supernatural or you're Bible-based. What? Where did this come from? Why do we have to choose? Do you like your nose or your ear? Well, I think I'd like to keep them both. So with biblical. The other, another stone, I think I know them, but I should read them. Another stone that we've got to keep is we must stay simple. Got to stay simple. And when I say this, I'm not opposed to anything, any type of thing that gets the message out. So I'm not opposed to anything. I'm not opposed to whatever. Use light show, smoke, horns, whistles. I'm fine with any of it. But just make sure the heart of everything is simple. It's got to be simple. It has to be as simple. I think of this even in preaching. If I were to teach a preaching class, and I know this is not how it's taught today in many places, this is what I would do. I would give the student this, and that's it. And I would say preach. And you're going to be someplace where I probably wouldn't give them electricity. I'd just put them outside. I would.
Yeah, especially days like today.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a short message. It'd be simple, baby. Okay, go over the last 50, 100 years, who's the greatest preacher the world ever had? Billy Graham, right?
Yeah.
How complicated was he? Holy cow, I listened to his message thinking, really, Billy? I could preach way better than that.
The gospel is simple.
Simple. It's simple. It was him and the Bible. At the heart of everything's got to be simplicity. Now again, I'm not opposed to anything we use. I'm fine with it. But it better never replace the simplicity. It better never oh no, the electricity is out. We have to shut the church doors.
No.
But do you understand what I'm saying? A lot of churches couldn't function without
We've had
electricity.
that happen.
Well, the overhead's out.
We're done. No more time with Jesus. We have no computer. We're done. But
We'll have a Bible console.
That's right.
All we're back to flannel graph.
Never goes out of style. But I'm just saying, don't think there's not a time coming when all of the flash that we have now, we're going to lose it all.
Right.
And let me tell you, it shouldn't affect
Amen.
what we do. It will affect how we do it. I'm not opposed to electricity, just so you know. Okay, I like it all. I like all that. You understand what I'm saying? I like it all. But I better be able to outlast it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys remember it was the funniest thing ever. Kevin Lehman, he's a pretty big deal. He came to our church one Sunday, spoke at 2 services. We had over 800 people show up. We had no electricity.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Why does electricity go out Sunday morning? I mean, it's like, where do we live? No electricity. We have a packed house. Our first service was at 9 o'clock, and we had a packed house. I mean, no electricity. I mean, our band is like, well, here we are. Andrew Dahlgren was leading worship. He was ready to just go completely acoustic. We didn't have any generator, nothing. And so he was just going to go acoustic and lead us. And we were fine. Nobody panicked and all that stuff. And, praise God, at 8:45, the electricity came back on. But we weren't going to shut our doors. We were just going for it. Here we go. In some ways, it would have been super cool to have a completely packed house of visitors right? Wondering why we don't pay our electric. Wow, it's like the Amish there. And the kicker of it was, we weren't on city water at the time. We don't have any toilets. Remember? Because if you're on a well, you take it one flush. Okay, guys, we got 20 toilets, one flush. Let's be strategic about this. So, this is what I'm talking about. We gotta, at the heart of our message must be simplicity.
Yeah.
So just write that down, take it. And the other thing, and I'll just say these things. The Word of God has to be our ministry has to be practical. It's just got to be practical. It's got to meet needs. It has to be, if somebody's hungry, we feed them. Right? If they're hungry, we don't preach to them. It's practical. Our ministry is practical. Our ministry is in everyday life. Our ministry is economical. It deals with whatever the fear, whatever the thing is. It's practical. So we go after whatever the practical thing is. We're practical ministry. We do that. We help people. Flesh and blood. It is flesh and blood. Our battle's not against flesh and blood, but our ministry is for flesh and blood. So it's practical ministry. And then the other thing is we've got to be generational. And I will say generational because I think I like every generation. Anybody ready to bump off any generation?
No.
I like them all. And so it's got to be generational. Bill, I've been away too long. Bill Hawthorne. His mom went into the Rouse home recently, and so he's getting like this first-hand taste of nursing home. And it's really neat because God, where's Leslie going? He gone. So I can make up stuff about her. He was sharing with us that he says, I almost feel like this is the exit generation. We always use the next generation. He says this is the exit. They're on their way out. And he's like, this compassion has come over him. And he says, we can't let the exit generation leave until they know the love of God, until we're out touching. So he's got this whole renewed, it's very easy to forget the exit generation. I've never heard that term. Maybe we'll coin a new sociological term. I don't like it. It's on their way out. You haven't gone through the exit yet, but you're you're inching closer to the exit. But that whole issue, man, we got all generations. Now, do we need a little extra focus on the younger? Of course. Why? Because they've never heard. They've never heard. And, newsflash, half the world's population is under the age of 20. Half. Ouch.
I guess we're all dead.
Half of the world's population is under the age of 20. That should just let that sink in when you think of what we do with generations. Half. Means if you're looking at two people, one of them has never experienced anything you experienced in the last century. Half the world's population didn't breathe in the last century.
They didn't have fun.
Yeah, they didn't. But I mean, just think of that. Almost half the world's population never knew pre-9/11.
Yeah.
Whoa. Does that not feel like that was like yesterday? It was a world ago for half the world's population. So that means they didn't know anything, and they never experienced anything before. They barely experienced anything of God. And so we've got to be like, oh Lord, this whole generation. So we want to love the exit generation. And we want to love these people born in this century. Isn't that weird? Most of us knew and loved people born 2 centuries ago. Isn't that weird? I feel extremely old when I tell people that one of the most influential people in my life was born in the 1800s. It doesn't even seem possible. So, goodness gracious. That would be like when I was born, somebody born in the 1700s, right? 2 centuries ago. And so, but I just want us to know that one of our stones must be generational, and it just has to be. So, I'm not gonna. Let me just share one thing, because this will get you a little bit charged up. Did I give you 5?
Yes.
Okay, gave you all 5. Supernatural, biblical, simple, practical, and generational. And so we're going to run with those a little bit this year. In I'm not sure how, but I know that they're key for us. And God's going to give us ideas. He's going to give us new ways of reaching people, new ways of reaching old people, young people, forgotten people. You mentioned the rich people. There's a forgotten people. We forget that rich people actually need Jesus, right? People who are healthy need Jesus. We forget those. We just do. It's easy to think of the sick. Well, so do the healthy. So do the people who do well in school. So do the people who go to college. So do, everybody is equally as needy at the foot of the cross. They're all equally as needy. I think one of the reasons Jesus says it's hard for the rich man to get into heaven is because the church forgets about the rich man. Think about that, right? Jesus says it's harder for the rich man to get into heaven than a camel to get to the eye of a needle. Well, maybe it's because we've ignored them. Wow, wouldn't that be a terrible commentary?
Yeah.
If we just ignored all the people who seemed like the facade was doing well. Right. The facade, it's easy to get the poor to come to Jesus because they know they're in trouble. And so it's harder for the ones doing well, which are most of us, because we don't know we're in trouble. And so that's a good thing to be praying for also. So, hey, there's much to do. Just a real quick, simple thing. Here's one of those crazy ideas that God is starting to birth. I was asked by the governor of the county and the minister of sports and youth in the county, sought me out when I was over there, which is strange in itself. 1 million people in this county. Their counties are set up like states. 47 counties in Kenya. And this, I went and met with this guy, and he says, we have 500,000 young people who are directionless, who most of them are quitting school, they're all involved in drugs, they're messed up. What could you do to help us? As the minister of sports talking to me. And I shared a little bit with people over the years, but 2 years ago, God gave me a vision for International Sports Academy, which would take local churches or in the nations of the world and have them use sports to grow their church and to reach young people. And they would, hardly any countries in the world except developed nations have any organized youth sports. And in this county that I was in, there are 0 organized sports, 0. Like Josh is over there now, 14-year-old who's a phenomenal soccer player. There's no such, he can't even play a game. There's nothing. He can hang out in his yard and kick a ball around. And so to have the churches, local churches, start basically leagues, in basketball and baseball is what I would do, and have them start leagues, train kids, get kids on a team. They would provide coaches who are experts at the game but experts at life, and bring in the gospel to them and having them involved with the church. And the requirements for being on the team would be good requirements, like you got to go to school, you got to avoid not use drugs, and you need to come to church or something like that. And so I shared this with this guy. He got bug-eyed. He's so excited, and he says, we're all in. And I said, what does that mean? He says, I got 25 wards in my county. I want a league in every ward. And he says, I got 500,000 students. I want them all in this. He says, what can we do? I'm thinking, man, I wasn't prepared for this. I'm coming over here to encourage pastors, and you're just telling me, this is what he said. He says, this is such a cool idea. He says, there's 47 counties in Kenya. He says, I think we could be the pilot so all the other counties follow us. Yeah. And we're going after the young people. And I said, well, listen, I'm only doing this to grow churches. I have no interest in growing your government. And he says, that's great. We'll use the churches and we'll go after them. And so what we left with is there's not a single basketball court in Trans-Nzoia County, which is Kitale. And so he's going to build basketball courts in they have money and they have no idea what to do. He has no idea how to do his job. And he just is brand new. And what is a minister? Yeah, that's right. Closet government. I got a lot of money. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Maybe he's David.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he's David. We need to pray for him like he is David.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a Christian, because everybody over there is kind of a Christian. They're very normal Christians, but I mean they have a very positive view of the church. And so here he wants to do this, and I'm thinking, man, there is no way I can do this. I'm thinking this is a concept in my head. I have a one-page idea paper I've written. I didn't have that with me, and I have really kind of laid this vision to rest for about a year. And so he's saying I want it. And so the plan is by August they'll build basketball courts for us. He loved the idea of baseball too, because there's no baseball in Kenya. But he said, "Oh man, baseball would be great," because Uganda has started baseball, and that's their neighboring country. And Uganda was actually even in the Little League World Series, and yada yada yada. And loved the idea of basketball. He knows that this is a ticket for some kids to get a college education. I mean, he's very aware of that. And so they're going to build basketball courts, and they're going to provide, we fill up a container, park a container in Brian's shop, fill it up with... Well, this is a container's big. It's like 40 whatever by 10, something like that. And just fill it up with anything we would want. And it has free passage, no customs, no taxes, free passage right to, and it would go to Peter's house. And then isn't that crazy? And then the container would literally become our office.
Wow.
Because we buy the container, and then we keep the container, and that would be where we'd store things, and it would be we'd run the operations out of this container. Was with a guy who's Peter's brother-in-law, who of all things has a degree. He's a young guy, just got a degree in. They call it gender studies, but it's basically in youth. And because when you say gender studies, we go to some whacked out liberal thing. And so it's basically in youth, just got a degree in it, and he would be the guy on the ground to be our national administrator of this whole thing. And so I'm like, this is so crazy. You can't make this stuff up. But then I'm thinking, wait a minute. I can't do this. What are you talking about? It's impossible to do this. And so I said, let's start small. Let's pick me two. This is what I told him. I said, pick 2 words that are easy. I said, don't give me. I said, I want easy ones. I said, give me 2 words so we can succeed.
Yeah.
And so why do I share? I share that with you because I'm excited about it. But I also share with you, that's an idea God gave me one day. Lots of people have used sports, but this is what I've not found. I don't know of anybody using sports to grow churches.
Right.
They use sports to do outreaches,
Yeah.
and they're cool. I love outreaches. But grow churches is what we're to disciple people, to disciple nations.
Yeah.
And that's not coming by just filling out a little card.
That's right.
It's getting involved with somebody's life. It's having a literal coach for your life. And we all know this, coaches are the most influential people in our lives. Aside from parents, coaches dominate. Teachers, you're just awesome. Pastors, you're great. Coaches rule. And you know that. And they would rule everywhere because they just do. That's the nature of the position.
So how many of you are signing up to be a coach?
Yeah. Now, all the coaches are over there, but I need to take over teams to train coaches because they don't know what basketball is. Whoops! My bad. But they offered me, he says, let me show you this facility you have to use to train coaches. So this facility is like a room like this. It's got TV. He says you can use this to train people, and we'll do classes in here and all that stuff. And so he wanted to meet with me. Isn't that weird? I didn't seek out this meeting.
That's God.
And at the meeting was the Kenya's national government, the Speaker of the House, his secretary, whatever he was, the press secretary for the Speaker of the House, was there with me. Like, what are you doing here? Fred is his name. And this is so Fred's all excited about it. So he wants it to go here and there and the other place. And so it's really at its infancy, but it's a concept that got big. But why I wanted to share that with you is because that was an idea God gave me that was a creative idea that was given to me in his presence. And I thought it's a cool idea. Anybody I shared it with, they thought that's a cool idea. I had no idea how to make it happen. And then out of the blue, God threw me in somebody's office where it's, ooh, this is happening. And so that's the type of thing God wants to do in whatever area that you have a heart for, whatever area. In me, this area was a heart for the churches of the nations of the world and a heart for young people. And he linked them to, well, that kind of like sports too. And so, yeah, that's a cool thing.
Whom God calls, he enables.
Exactly, he does. And so here's what I want to do. We're just going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and take some time to worship, and Woody's going to share a little bit before lunch. But I want you to be asking God, what is it that, when, was it the founder of World Vision says, Lord, break my heart with things that break your heart. And so you know what's broken your heart. And some of it you've ignored for a decade. That's fine. Don't beat yourself up. Just say, yeah, I remember when that used to break my heart, but I don't care anymore. Really? Can we just honestly say that? Well, we might as well say it, right? Just say it. It used to be a burden of mine, but now it's gone. But here's what God can do. You might be in day 40 of the Philistines picking on you and Goliath taunting you, and it's day 40, and it's time to pick up some stones and time to tear them down. So I really believe that's where we are as a church. I believe that's where you are as individuals, maybe in your family, whatever it is. Just say, yeah, I've been being taunted by the devil for 39 and a half days, and I'm tired of it. And God will give you an idea on how to pick up some stones and go after it. And so I'm Father, just do that. Speak to us. Give us creativity. There's things that you have out there for us, and really do amazing things. We're ready to see the Goliath fall, and then to see all the people who have been scared for 40 days rise up in faith and charge. Father, use us to be the leaders. The leaders, because we saw what you were doing, we saw where you were calling us, we went that way, and you gained victory. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen.